What is up, guys, and welcome back to another PLO poker coaching hand review. Here we are jumping into a 5-10 hand that I played yesterday, actually. Kind of a interesting spot that I've been in a few times, and just wanted to kind of jump into breaking down a hand instead of just kind of checking whether or not you sort of played it right and what might seem relatively simple, and sort of seeing what takeaways we can get out of the hand. So before we jump in, make sure you check out our website at PLOpokercoaching.com. You can get a free 30-minute intro session where we'll evaluate your game. And also we have some premium content out there that we are building up. So you can get some paid for videos that go into greater detail than some of these. Okay, so let's jump into the hand. So starting off here, pretty standard. We raise and get 3-bet from the big blind, standard call. And we flop bottom set on an ace-high board, which is always kind of an interesting spot, facing a 3-better and some usually tighter ranges from population. And we face a pot size c-bet, and on this board I would expect the out of position player to have kind of a pot sizing and a half pot sizing. So we're gonna kind of look at both and see what we would kind of do. But, a lot of people would kind of just jump into this hand, right? So we might jump into PLO trainer, we might look at saying, against the pot size bet, okay, like my specific hand we could look at it on this board as being like 7, 7, 8, 9 with a gut shot. Basically always just calling unless we have the backup of a flush draw. Pretty standard as to how we go ahead and play that hand. And, that's how we played it. And then obviously looking for kind of blank turns that we can then stack off against, right? So we did get the money in. However, that's not really going to benefit you too much in terms of developing your soft poker mindset and your ability to kind of understand the game. What we really need to look at is to try and see, what would we do in different positions? If we'd raise from EP and got 3-bet, what would we do against different sizes? What about a slightly different board? And kind of see the heuristics there. So in game, my thought was that, I don't really have that many raises on an ace-high board. So without any sort of backup here, I'm always just going to be check calling. I would really look to just kind of have a flush draw. And that's my quick in-game thinking. But when I sort of think about it in terms of, those differences that I might not have time to think about, I want to think about, okay, well, what about the bet sizing, right? So if I'm sort of playing against this sizing against pot, I'm probably going to have a lot of raises, right? But what if you used half pot? Well, I would imagine that we're likely going to be raising, less against that half pot sizing. And that's because at this SPR, the half pot sizing is actually going to be a much more polarized range, right? So our opponent is going to have a lot of very weak hands and a lot of very strong hands, right? So raising makes little sense because we fold out all of his bluffs, and then we always get it in against better. And then we also remove our positional advantage, where we could have an SPR of like 2 on the turn. So when we kind of look at that, I have some other examples here. I believe against half pot, you'll see our raise frequency is 6.6%, and our overall raising range here from PLO trainer is 12%. So it's almost double against the pot sizing, which kind of makes sense in terms of the polarity. Now, one of the slight misunderstandings that I had was kind of the importance of blocking aces when I was looking at my hand. Obviously here we'll see that we do have some raising range when we get 3-bet against the button, and if we have 7-7, we'll see that there is a good portion here that bets. And as I said, my logic is, okay, I'm gonna jam basically every time I have bottom set with a flush draw backup, because when I run into ace-ace, I want to have some sort of equity. And you'll see that here, even when we don't have hearts, we're going to raise almost 20% of the time with bottom set. And even if we don't block an ace, we're still going to raise almost 12%. And that is purely down to the structure of the three betting ranges that are in play, given that the big blind can, be raising a much wider range of hands against the button, and he's going to have a ton of ace-jack type hands with a gut shot that he's never going to be able to fold, and we kind of get rid of some of our playability issues on the turn when we have these types of hands. So when we're looking at it, what we really kind of want to think of is unblocking hands that we do really well against when we stack off, and other hands that he can have that we stack off against. And as we said, sort of like top two with a gut shot, we're doing pretty well. So when we look at hands here, that we wouldn't want to have, and if we take them out of our range, means that we actually raise a ton, right? As if we unblock some of the straight draws as well, right? So if we have like no king, we go up. If we have no queen, we increase it. We have no 10, right? So we see that percentage just continuously kind of bumping up for multiple reasons. That, one, we unblock a stack of range we're doing well against, but obviously we have less playability on turns, and when we just flat, pretty much any turn on this board is going to be very tough to play with 7-7. So here it's pretty key to unblock those draws, and we do actually have like quite a large raising range. And we might not necessarily see that when we just plug our hand in, and not realize that the 9 in our hand was probably one of the main reasons why we shouldn't raise. If we compare that to a 3-bet against the button, against EP, versus that sort of range, we're going to see a completely different kind of spectrum of hands, right? So we still have a raising range of 7-7. There's going to be a bunch of hands that we can do okay against, and you'll notice here that we can never have a flush draw because our EP open is going to be 7-7 double suited, so we won't have anything in that range. But if we look here, if we don't have an ace, we're never raising, and that is basically kind of what my mindset was a little bit more on the button. So I should have been more aware of the positional ranges in play. So the ace here is key. You can even see it, right? If we changed our hand to Jack-Jack, we're going to have some raising range. We have Jack-Jack with hearts. Obviously, that's going to be a big portion. But again, if we have no ace, even Jack-Jack with hearts is like still only raising like 14%, right? And that's with the best possible backup. If we have Jack-Jack, no ace, and no heart, we're never raising, right? So that's how we have to look at it in terms of different positions. So what kind of makes a good raise with bottom set? We sort of looked at it in terms of unblocking those specific sort of straight draw hands that our opponent can stack off with, and then again blocking the important blockers, right? So we saw how vital the ace was when we're in EP, and you can take a look at the differences, right, when we have big blind versus button, and we look at how many top sets or sets in general the big blind is going to have here, and you can see here 16.8%, and versus our EP open range when he 3-bets, it's going to be like over double. So that's why the ace becomes a lot more critical in terms of when we want to actually do that. So then we can also look at slightly different boards, right? And we can see if that logic kind of makes sense. And if we take a board like Jack 8 deuce here facing a pot size bet, we'll now see that basically all of our sets are kind of jamming, right? And that is because this board is no longer a massive equity and polarity advantage for the 3-better in position. We have a ton more equity against hands that our opponent will stack off with, overpairs and flush draws, kind of like pair and straight draw type hands. So we have to understand on different boards as to when we're actually going to shove the equity in. And so here, you're kind of just jamming range with bottom set, given that you're able to push more equity. So taking a sort of simplistic hand like this and going through a bunch of different scenarios will allow you to kind of better understand and apply it across different parts of the game tree. And you can even do things like, okay, well, what would we do here if we were 200 big blinds deep in this 3-bet pot? And, you know, we would probably raise even less. We would need stronger backup, and we would kind of go ahead. And you'll see how this is different against different ranges. You know, you'll see a lot of the time if we have a set and a flush draw, we're going to trap and we're going to slow play. That's because, you know, there are less ranges that we're behind. We're, you know, running into bluffs a lot more once we have that much of the board dominated, and, you know, our opponent can't continue. So main kind of point of the video, don't just run in there and kind of check your hand in the trainer. Look in a bunch of different scenarios and see if you can kind of pull out those heuristics, and then try it against some different boards and see what the difference is going to be, and try and understand why you're doing certain stuff, or why the solver wants to do certain stuff. That's going to be it from me. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck at the tables out there.